Hey everyone, I'm Crystal Jigrup, and this is Empowered by Women. In August of 2021, I launched Book of Bijou, which is a line of chic and innovative jewelry storage. And in January of 2022, we expanded into what you now see as the Empowered by Women platform. I really wanted to create a centralized space where we can really put emphasis on our mission of women empowerment and community over competition. It really truly does fill my cup to be surrounded by so many of you inspiring women, and the energy that you bring to me and our platform on a daily basis is unmatched. You really all do fuel me with so much motivation to continue doing what I'm doing, and for that, I thank you. Before we jump into the episode, please be sure to follow or subscribe to us wherever you are listening, whether you're watching on YouTube or you're listening on your favorite podcast platform. And also don't forget to share your favorite episodes with your fellow female founders so that we can continue growing our platform and furthering our mission. All right, let's go ahead and jump into this next interview with another incredible woman in entrepreneurship that I know you guys are going to absolutely love. Today, we have the incredible Pauline Kirk. She is a global speaker, an Amazon #1 international best-selling author, a mentor, a senior leader for Tony Robbins, and the founder of FemvestorsGlobal. I am so excited to dive into this conversation. There's going to be so much juicy information. I already know it. But first and foremost, Pauline, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Crystal, for having me here. I'm so excited.
Absolutely. So I like to just start the conversation by handing it off to you. Well, first, tell us where you're joining us from, since I know we've been having a lot of international guests lately. So tell us where you're joining us from, and then give us a little bit of background into what has led you to this point today with Femvestors Global. What is that? What are you doing? And how has everything that you've been doing led you to this point?
Thank you, Crystal. So I'm based in the beautiful city state of Singapore. So here in Asia, you can probably tell by my accent, I don't sound very Asian. And my background, I'm originally from the UK. I've lived and worked in 10 countries, and I'm currently residing here in Singapore. And I've been here for about 14 months now. So what led me here? And what led me to Femvestors Global. So it's like everything, we're all on a journey, right? And for me, my journey is a little bit different. My background was I was in the British Navy. I served in Iraq in 2002, 2003. And when I left, I actually had a big addiction to spending money. So it was diagnosed years later as PTSD, and for me, I didn't know what it was. I just knew that every time I spent money, I felt great about myself to the point where it became an addiction. So, long story short, 10 credit cards later, and I didn't have a lot of self worth. And I dated the wrong men, not once, but twice, because I like to do things, not by halves. And I ended up in a relationships that didn't serve me. And I was also guarantor for a property and a business that both didn't work out either. And now I'm saddled with a huge amount of debt. And it was my darkest time in my life. And I don't know if any of your listeners have been through that environment where you just don't know if there's going to be a way out. And I had two choices to make. I call it the red pill or the blue pill, right? You had to make a decision. Do we carry on with the life that we have today, or do we make different decisions? And we all have that time in our life where there's no matter what, you're at the lowest of the low, you got to do something different. And I had my finger on the enter button on my computer to make a decision to either file for bankruptcy, or I had to make a different decision. And I knew that if I filed for bankruptcy, for me, it was a label. For someone who's come from an officer in the military, who's been saluted mom, called certain things, it's very hard then to go into an environment where you're labeled. And for me, it wasn't what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be a label. So I made a different decision. So I found a way. I found a way out of my debt. So I slept on friends' couches. I, slept on sofas. I worked 3 jobs to pay off my debt. And then I got myself educated just by learning in the library before the days of the internet. And I just basically spent a lot of time in the library when I wasn't working and just got some better skills and put myself out there, raised my hand a lot and asked for things. I put my hand up so many times, said, look, this is what I need. Can you help me? And I was too ashamed to go home to my parents. My parents never knew anything. about my life in terms of, how much debt I was in, my situation. I was just too ashamed. And I decided to just do what I needed to do, get myself out and just let the corporate world take my life over. And I sold my soul to corporate for such a long time because I just had to pay off the debt. So whatever, this is why I live and worked in 10 countries, because I'm like, you need someone there? Oh yeah, my hand's raised, I will go there. And that's literally what I did. So my job took me around the world and, I got myself out of debt. And I've come from someone who lived in a military town, and then I worked myself up to become a global director of a mining company here in Singapore. So I've gone from, someone who's in the military, then I was waitressing, then I was doing all these other jobs just to pay off the debt, earn some money in my spare time. I didn't go out. I had to work. I knew if I wasn't going out to bars and restaurants, I was actually getting fed in restaurants because I was working in them. So I knew that my food bills would be covered because I was working and I got free food. And that's how it all started. And then that led me to where I am today. So where you've come from real poverty, where you've got literally no money, you don't know how you're going to survive. It then allowed me to create Femvestors Global. And I don't want any other woman to go through my own experience when it comes to women and our money, when it comes to our money stories, our belief systems around money. We don't realize a lot of the time how much money has an effect on our lives. And it's pressing, Crystal, that we're talking about at this time when there's a lot of fear in the world right now, and money talks a lot of our areas of our life. It's our emotions, it's, what's in the bank account, it's the stress and worry that comes with it. It affects our relationships, businesses, careers, every area of our life money touches. And yet it's one area in 2024 that's still taboo, that no one's really talking about. And this is the sad part, where I really want to be that we can talk about money. We can talk about money in our relationships. And the sad part today is that 48% of couples divorce, and the number one reason for divorce is generally around money. We're not talking about it. So we need to start having those conversations. And it's really around supporting women on their journeys around money, how it makes us feel, and then how we look after money. Because for so many of us, we don't know how to manage money. And it's our money habits. It's the things that we do. It's I deserve it because I've worked so hard for it, or I deserve certain things. And we're living in the moment and we're living for today. And many of us aren't spending for tomorrow. And the reality is that we may live till 95 or 100. And yet we're not thinking that far ahead because we're living in the now. And if we don't have anything to aim for, we don't have a goal, we don't have something to think about, we don't know why we're putting our money away, because it's not something that we think about. So then I've been on this roller coaster for the last few years. I actually decided to walk away from my corporate life after 25 years in 2021. And a gentleman by the name of Tony Robbins, for those that don't know him, is a big number one life coach in the world, big hands, American guy. And he was the guy who changed my life. He was one, and I was on a Zoom world and with 23,000 other people on Zoom. And I felt that he was talking to me in the screen. And he turned around and said, Pauline, burn the boats. If you're not happy in your life, burn the boats. Now I've got to the point in my life now where I'm in a position, I don't have to worry about my money anymore. So I've gone from someone who's had no money, literally no money, to the point where, I said I'm sleeping on friends' couches and worked in restaurants to get food in my mouth every day, to go to where the life I have today, that is taking grit, hard work and determination. I always say, whoever's listening, hashtag, a man is not a plan, hashtag, because so many of us think that that is the way out for a lot of us as women. And it's not. The statistics I mentioned around divorce, we have to look after ourselves. And I'm very much a believer that we need to create our own economy, because no one is coming to save us. If we look at governments today, they're certainly not looking after us when it comes to us and our money and our future. So the more money that we put away for ourselves for tomorrow, the more beautiful life that we're going to have, and less stress.
Oh my gosh, there is so much that I want to dive into what you just said. And I think the role that you're playing with this brands that you've built and what you're doing for other women is so crucial. And like you said, so critical, especially now with all of the statistics of divorce and all of that, and women being a little bit more independent. We do need to place ourselves in positions that are a little bit more favorable to us, where we are comfortable reaching out and getting the education that we need so we can set ourselves up for success. But diving back into your personal story, taking it all the way back to when you were kind of dealing with that, you said you were an emotional spender. What was your money mindset at that time? Like, did you feel like you had a decent understanding of the way that you spent money or how you were dealing with your finances, or you didn't think about it at all?
I laugh about it now, but at the time it was like, it's the bank's money. It's not even my money, it's the bank's money, because I live on credit cards. So for me, it's just tap. It's not, I'm not even thinking about it because I don't even own the money. It's just, it belongs to whichever bank I'm with. Tap, feel great. Then the money belongs to them. And that's how I used to deal with it. For those that know my story and follow me online, I'm quite open about it now. And it's taken me a few years to talk about it. Is I actually used to keep my credit card in the freezer. So then I used to literally take it out the freezer and scratch the snow off it, and then literally go, right, I can read the number now. That was literally my way of like thinking about it, and then moved in more into mindful spending later on. But at the time, for me, it was just at the time, just put money in the credit card, feel great. I mean, afterpay services weren't really there now, because I know it's no more prevalent today. And it's even more worrying today when you look at the statistics, is that people use their mobile phones to pay for everything now. Our brains aren't even realizing that we're spending money. I mean, I knew I was spending money because I felt great. And I just didn't realize it. The reality is that I kept thinking, well, it's the bank's money, it's the bank's money, it's the bank's money. And that was my mentality at the time. And like everything, it's not your money, so you have to pay it off. And I was like, yeah, I'll pay off a little bit every month. And oh yeah, 0% interest free. Yep, I'll just move that onto there, and I've got another credit card to spend. And then that was literally how it was going for such a period of time. And the things I spent my money on was to make myself feel good. It was clothes, it was like makeup, hair, whatever it was. It was all about making myself feel good. And then I used to buy gifts for other people as well. So I was just like always spending money to make myself feel good and help other people as well. And that was just, here, I bought something for you, not
Yeah.
even realizing.
That immediate gratification, right? Why do
Oh,
you think
instant.
why do you think there's that disconnect with women and finances compared to with our male counterpart? And they are so comfortable constantly talking about money and dealing with all of the financial things, usually in a household, right? Why do you think that is?
I call it the Disney effect. We have grown up. If you look at the toys that we played with as children, as women, if you look at, I'm in my 40s. So if you look at the toys, there were like kitchens, there were dolls, there were, clothing. Those are the types of toys that we played with. If I look at the books that I read, if I looked at the movies that I watched, everything was related to be women being a caregiver in a home, and we were going to be rescued by a man. And that, I call it the Disney effect. And unfortunately, from a societal point of view, and it doesn't matter where you live in the world, I speak to so many women. I've lived in Asia, I've lived in Western countries, I've lived in so many parts of the world, and it's been the same response: is that we think someone is going to come and rescue us, like from a subconscious point of view. We don't think about it, but because it's ingrained with us for so long, for so many decades in some cases, and therefore then we just assume certain things because that's what our subconscious is believing, because that's what we've grown up with over time.
Okay, I know you're all well invested into this episode so far, but I wanted to just take a quick moment to tell you all about Cast Magic, because this tool has been a lifesaver for me and the Empowered by Women podcast. And we don't like to gatekeep around here, okay? So if you also have a podcast, a YouTube channel, or really produce any kind of long form content, you really need to introduce Cast Magic into your life if you haven't already. It used to take me forever to find specific clips, create captions and titles and descriptions, and all the things that come with running a podcast, but Cast Magic has made that 10 times easier for me. And as a mom with a very busy schedule, I am all about simplifying and streamlining my to-do list. So seriously, save yourself some time and even multiply your usable content and download it ASAP. The link will be included in the show notes, but let's go ahead and get back to this awesome interview. Yeah, it's that like you just said, subconscious kind of like ingraining, right? And we lean into this nurturing mindset, right? Of having to take care of other people. And it's like we're turning a blind eye to everything else that we kind of just assume, like, oh, it's going to be okay. Someone else will take care of it. As a woman, this is what I'm here for, to take care of my house, take care of my family, and everything else will just be magically taken care of. I just don't have to address it, right? So with your story, it seems like there was quite a bit of a time lapse for you actually just working to pay off that debt, to you actually taking that next step to say, okay, let me start getting educated. Is that right?
Yeah. So I'll share a little bit more. So after I managed to pay off the debt, and I'm talking, this has taken quite a while to pay off the debt. I then didn't know what to do with money because I'm not used to having any, right? So then I spoke to my girlfriends and I was like, I'm excited. I've got money in the bank for the first time, that I don't owe anyone anything for a change. And the conversations with my girlfriends, I was like, so what do you do with your money? And they're like, I don't know, we just leave it in the bank and spend it. And I was like, that's not an option for me. I can't do that because I'm not very good with money. My credit card's still in the freezer, by the way. So, at the time, so I just didn't know. And, the more women I spoke to, it was the same response of, so then you always meet someone who says, hey, I know someone who can help you out. He's a financial advisor. And, if you want, have a chat with him and you can start putting your money away. Because now I'm starting to earn a bit more decent money in my corporate life. So I was like, okay, well, I don't know what else to do. So yeah, so I still remember it. You go in, the person might as well be speaking like a foreign language at you, because when people start talking in the finance industry, most of us have like no idea what's going on. Right? And I'm going back 15 years ago now, and I had no idea. So I just like, yeah, you sound like you know what you're on about, and you've got a nice suit and a flashy car, so you must be good with money. So I just ended up handing my money over. Long story short, I didn't have any money. And I had to start over again. And I believed the finance industry was like the people who were going to help me. You speak to, my parents like go and speak to the bank manager. It's that sort of, where do you go for financial information? And I trusted this person, and it didn't work out. And I was like, well, I'm clearly not a very good judge of character. So then I spent the last 15 years educating myself over my own finances. And now I stand up and talk quite openly around that we are our best investment in terms of getting educated, in terms of knowing what's out there, in terms of understanding the finance industry when it comes to fees. Fees, I call it the cancer of our future. We don't see them, they're not there, but no one tells you. And then at the end, no one says, hey, this is how much money you could have got if you didn't listen to me. You don't see that. You just see the end result. So I'm very open now about talking about fee structures. And just to give your audience an idea, if you're paying a financial advisor in the region of 1% fee, you're roughly giving away about 40% of your retirement money on a 1% fee structure. Now let that sink in.
Yeah.
And this is why the industry doesn't give us the numbers in real dollar terms or currency terms. This is why you get given a percentage, because our brains go, oh, it's a very small percent. And therefore then our brains go, oh, let's not think about it because it's 1-2% or 0.5%, whatever that is. This is the difference. This is the difference. And for your audience listening, even 0.5% on a bank account, to give you an idea, 0.5% on a bank account will roughly take you about 144 years to double your money. And most women are savers. 71% of women are savers as a statistic. And on that basis, then this is why we retire with no money, because most of us just leave it in the bank and do nothing, because like me, you didn't know what else to do with it, right? If we put that into a high interest account today, a high interest yield account, depending where you live in the world, the terminology, and you put that in 5%, you're doubling your money in less than 15 years. I'm more likely to be around in 15 years than I am in 144. I know medical science is going the right way, but I don't want to be living that long and having access to my money. So this is the difference that these percentage numbers have, but we don't see them because we think they're small numbers, but they make such a big difference to our future. And banks are businesses. We have to request a high interest account. They don't just automatically give us one. And what they're doing is they're taking our money, making themselves rich in the process, and then quite openly using that and giving that to other people, which they give to me for mortgages and applications and other things, and make even more money out of us. So, it's transfer of wealth. So it's just being mindful around the fact that, these little percentages all add up over time, which is why so many of us don't have a lot of money in retirement. And the US statistic is that 1 in 5 women will retire with nothing, like zero money, because we're living for today. Money's sat in low interest accounts, and then we're in the poverty line. And being through my own journey, this is why now I stand on stages talking about women in our future and the trajectory and what we can do to change it. So these little things that I'm talking about today make such a big difference to our future.
It really is so mind-blowing because it is such a small difference, just changing where your money is sitting, knowing what is available, what is that option, where can I move my money from this 1% to this 5%. That small change can make all the difference with what your future is looking like. It was interesting when you were talking and you were telling me about how you went to this financial advisor. It was almost like there was kind of that cycle that was happening again. You just happened to be male, first of all. And then still, you didn't quite know what it was that you were doing, that you were going to him for. You kind of just relied on him to save the day, right? Save your finances, but you didn't understand what he was doing. You were kind of just like, okay, I trust him. I trust him to take care of it. It's almost as if he was taking on that, that husband role or that father role in the household, but instead for your finances. But you still didn't even still didn't even really understand what it was that you were doing, where your money was going, how it was growing, how it was being spent on those fees or whatever the case may be. So then you switched over to getting to that place of self-education, which I think is so powerful, right? Taking that power back into your own hands. That's actually something I've been listening to this workshop lately. It's not necessarily about finances, but really about delegating tasks to other people and doing your part and being diligent about understanding what it is that you're delegating before you even get to that point of delegation, right? So that you can have that control over it, even if you're then passing on the control to someone else, you still understand what's going on. So where can someone even begin to start self-educating themselves? Because like you said, the vocabulary, the jargon of it, it's like, okay, all going over my head. I have no idea what you're talking about, whatever, just make me money, just get me money. But we need to understand it. So what are your tips for how we can start that process of getting comfortable enough to want to learn more and to be able to take that next step to continue our education?
Thanks, Crystal. I mean, this is why I created my community. So especially for women, I woman-splain things, right? It's the best way to put it. There's no mansplaining in my community. I woman-splain things. I say to the woman, it's like going to Macy's. It's like going to a department store wherever you are in the world, and you want to know what's in the department store. So you want a suite of things to pick from. Now, when you go to an institution, you go there to buy Dior, right? You can only buy Dior and Dior. You can only buy Gucci and Gucci, and you can only buy Versace and Versace. So it's around having the information to go, what's in the department store, to then go, do I go to Gucci, Prada, or Versace? And that's really a great starting point, is to go, what's out there for me to buy? Now, some people will go, right, for me, I want to be in the stock market, and I'm like, okay, well, we can talk you through that. I'm also in the stock market myself. I own various stocks and various other things in the stock market, but I also have things outside of the stock market. And not everyone wants to be in the stock market. Some people are like, find it like, oh, I can't see it, I can't control it. And a lot of it comes down to our emotions. I talk about investing psychology and money psychology, as you know my story now. So it's also around where you're getting your information from, around what do you buy. Are you listening to it's like going to your girlfriend who's single for relationship advice, right? It's the same thing. Where are you going to for your financial advice? And many of us just assume, to your point, it's a male-dominated industry, that person's going to be looking after your best interests. Now, the key here is, I use the phrase fiduciary. And in America, you have to ask if you're 100% fiduciary, because they can be both. It's a conflict of interest. You can be a fiduciary as well as a broker. So if you're in other parts of the world, some fiduciary standards don't even exist, which basically means that as long as I sell you a product, then I've done my job. And I'm making commissions and bonuses out of it. And you know the fee structure in percentage terms, and it's 1% fee or 0.5% fee. Therefore, then you just hand over your money. So it's around whether it's my community, whether it's a look at where you're getting your information from. You know, there's so many people I see on TikTok today who've probably done some course for 5 minutes and suddenly they think they're experts in finance, right? I've been studying the markets for 15 years, you know, financially free myself because I practice what I preach. I have no interest in, you know, what other people are doing, but I focus on what I'm doing. And for a lot of people, they think I need to be good with maths or I need to be good with numbers. You actually don't. I mean, in my community, we look at millionaires and billionaires. They've already been there. Why do I need to go and study companies when I can just look at where the millionaires and billionaires are putting their money, know who they are and go, what did they buy that for? And go, why did they buy it? Let me do research. Let me understand the one reason why they bought it. And I'll make a decision to get into that company in the stock market or otherwise. So there's lots of things that we can do, especially in the world of the internet today, but there's so much confusing information as well. So it's around where you're spending your time. I always say emulate where you want to be. So if you're going to follow someone, find out if they're actually in a position or they, you know, for example, a bank, you know, they don't earn a lot of money, but they're giving you financial advice. I have financial advisors in my own community. I have oil traders in my own community, and they go, Pauline, I learn more from you because my financial institution is a great marketing tool. They teach me information to sell their products, and I get paid rewards for commissions and bonuses. And they're not bad people. It's just that's what they're paid to do, right? They're paid to transfer your wealth to a company, and they get a nice big fat paycheck in the process and a commission and bonus for the privilege. So ask yourself, where are you going for your financial information? We're a social enterprise. For everyone who's in our community, any of our paid programs, I actually donate 80% of our profits to charity. And my mission is bigger than me. My life is to change 100 million women's lives. It's a big number. And this is what Tony taught me, is the secret of living is giving. So anyone who comes into our community, it's a paid program. We actually donate that money in full transparency, not like the finance industry. And we actually donate that to other causes where it comes to getting education in different parts of the world for kids, for example, because I believe education is key to the world, and also supporting women and economic empowerment programs around the world. So that is what my community does specifically. But outside of my community, please go and read some amazing books. There's so many great, look at where the big players are. Warren Buffett, one of the biggest guys out there. You can probably see behind me if you're watching on screen, I've got books on Warren Buffett. I study him. Berkshire Hathaway is his fund. Look at where Berkshire Hathaway is putting their money is a good starting point to go, right, there's a good idea. And the other part is there's lots of different indexes you can buy. It's a risk going into one individual stock. But I can go out and buy an index fund, for example, in the stock market, which means I'm buying a group of companies. And the S&P 500 is one that you may hear a lot. And basically, it's the top 500 companies in the US. And those 500 companies might cost you, you know, maybe $200. And you can buy what they call a fractional share these days. So you don't have to pay $200. You can start with like $10. It's not a lot of money to start investing. People think they need a lot of money to invest. A number of people say, how much money do you need to invest? Write down a number. People think it's a lot of money. It's not. It's just the finance industry led us to believe we need a lot of money to invest because they will only look after our accounts when we're worth a certain amount of money. But the reality is that you can start off today with $10.
You know, what's crazy is I'm one of those people where finance stuff, a lot of it tends to go over my head. I'm currently in that position of, I really want to educate myself, but I love how you said, you femsplain it, you womansplain it for all of your audience. And I love that so much. And I feel like I'm like, yes, I'm following along. And I love that you mentioned it, not only to be mindful of where you're getting your information, but recognizing that there's no one way to do it, right? Looking into what is it that this person has been doing it? Why did they make that choice to do it? And does that work for me? Is that the right choice for me? I think that's such a key component of it. So I'm glad that you brought that up. You also mentioned that 80% goes to charities, which I absolutely love. I am definitely a very mission-driven company. And that is, you know, part of our goal with Empowered by Women is to really give back to our communities, to the people that we're working with.
how much do you think that has played a role in your growth, and how critical is that element of giving back to your brand?
Uh, it's why my brand exists. I wanted to do something different. The finance industry is all about take and no transparency and no trust factor. And I said I wanted to create an environment that was different outside of mansplaining, right? So for me, it's around I don't want anyone else to go through my own situation when it comes to my money stories, money beliefs, not being in a position where they understand things because I knew that was myself. So I wanted to create a community of women, and I have men in my community too, but a lot of my community is women where they have a place to come and there's no dumb question. I paid the dumb tax for years, as I call it, right? So I didn't want anyone else to pay the dumb tax. I didn't ask the questions because I didn't know what question to ask. Now I can sit down. How do I even have a conversation with my spouse? Let's have those types of conversations because I don't know how to start. I've been married to my spouse maybe 20 years and I don't even know how to start a conversation. I've got women in my community who don't even know what their partners earn because they don't talk about money. So, this is all part of what I do is around educating women themselves in a fun way. We make it fun. Say, I don't talk about numbers. Apart from do you know your numbers in terms of what goes in and out your account every month? That's only numbers that you need to know, and you don't need a calculator for that. We can do it online calculators these days, and your bank can run statements for you. So you don't even need to know numbers today. And a lot of people think that, and please scratch that out. But the reality is that, this is why this is the goal. But it's also being clear on your own goal, right? Why are we putting our money away every single month? Like, what do we want our money for? Why do I get out of bed each day? So this for me is my mission. People say to me all the time, Pauline, like you're like Mrs. Tony Robbins, like you've got so much energy, you live a level 10 life. I'm like, because I wake up every single day going, I'm breathing. I have gratitude in my life. 70% of the world's population lives on $10 a day. 70%. We are rich by global standards, but many of us are too busy focusing on other people, where I say, focus on yourself and were you better than where you were last year? And that's really the message. And then in terms of our community, making a difference is what keeps me going. When you're in a business, and I'm recently migrating over, I left my corporate life in 2021. It's what keeps me motivated when business is tough. I'm like, but I'm doing it because I'm generally changing lives. I'm enabling a child to go to school today. My husband and I bought some land. We're building a school in India. So our plan is to then not only teach children how to read and write, but also bought the land next door that grows wheat. So they're going to learn real practical skills that they can take back to their own communities and be self-sustaining. So many people in the world today do not want handouts. The Western world is very much entitlement. I'm not going to lie. And I see it time and time again. And the more time I've spent in Asia, they don't want entitlement. They find it embarrassing to ask for handouts. They want to create their own economies. And I see it in South America. I see it in parts of Africa as well. People want to create their own economies. And therefore, on that basis, then how do we give them the tools? So everything that we do in our community then supports people to then have their own sustaining economy going forwards. This is not just here's some money for a charity, and you don't really know where the money goes a lot of the time. I actually don't take any money out of my charity in terms of FemvestorsGlobal. I don't need to. I'm a stock market trader in my spare time. And then I have another business. So for me, this is very much my mission is let's get educated in the right areas of what we need to know, and then support others on their own journey. We'll lift the boats together.
That's so incredibly powerful. And I am in awe of what you're doing and the ripple effect of what you've started and what you've created, and how it's so much more than even just this, the subject of finances. Like that in it of itself is creating so much impact, that you're creating this platform for women to get educated. But the fact that you've been able to manipulate it into a way that it is causing this compounding impact in so many other areas for them to continue to create their own economy, and in other ways other than just focusing on their financial education, is so incredibly powerful. And I am in awe of you. Pauline, I feel like I could continue to dive into your story and ask you more and more questions, but where can everyone find you if they are interested in learning more about what you do and connecting with you?
So our social, so as I say, our company is FemvestorsGlobal, basically means female investor. And so that's our organization. And I'm based in Singapore, but I've lived and worked in 10 countries. So I can talk 401ks in America, which is an ISA in the UK, which is a super fund in Australia, which is a CPF contribution in Singapore. So I can talk the language, and if we don't know about it, then we'll find a way to support you on your own journey. We have a research team that also goes into some things as well and supports our communities. We're across all our socials. We've recently moved into TikTok, and we're starting to pump out information every day. So even if you just follow us online at no cost, just start looking at what we're doing and then start thinking about, yes, money, I need to think about it, because a lot of us aren't even, for a lot of women, it's way down the list of priorities, right? Where family, kids, husbands, like businesses, whatever it may be, and then money's way down the pecking order. And then something happens, money comes to the top, and we panic because we're not in a position to be aware of what we need to do. So basically, if you're looking for a life jacket, this is our community. I want every woman to have her own life jacket, no matter what happens.
I love that. And it's definitely, like I said, it's my plan to really get in tune with all of the things finance this year. So I am going to be looking into it for sure. And I love what you said. I think it's the perfect mindset to kind of leave everyone off with. If finances is one of those things that like makes you feel so uncomfortable, it's okay if you don't know. Like Pauline said, even if they don't know, they look into it, right? They do their research, they find out about it, that it's not the end of the world if you don't know. There's always a place to start. There's always resources to help you. Pauline is clearly a wealth of resources and knowledge. So I am so glad that we were able to have you on today. Thank you so much, Pauline, for sharing your insight, your story, and your platform.
Thank you, Crystal. And thank you for allowing me to share. The more people know that we do, the more lives we can change.
Another incredible interview with yet another inspiring woman in entrepreneurship. I hope you guys loved that episode just as much as I did. But before we leave off, if you yourself are also a woman entrepreneur, I would love for you to consider joining our Empowered by Women directory. We're looking for women-owned product and service-based businesses in the US to help us build the go-to place for our communities to find local women to shop with and connect with, and we'd love for you to be a part of it. All of the details can be found on www.empoweredbywomen.com/apply-directory. Of course, that's going to be linked in the show notes below, and you're also welcome to reach out to me anytime if you have any questions. But other than that, thank you again so much for joining us, and I will see you in the next episode.